Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Daryl Urbanski, your host as always. And today we are joined by a business building coach, speaker, and fellow podcaster, Fabienne Raphael. Fabienne helps aspiring and underpaid coaches become highly paid experts. Her background in radio and television hosting helped her run a top-ranked Marketing to Crush Your Competitors podcast. Fabienne has shared the stage with John Lee Dumas, been featured in Forbes, Inc. magazine, ABC, NBC, Thrive Global, Huffington Post, plus much, much more. Fabienne will also be going to the next Pan American Games in Lima as an athlete's mentor with the Canadian delegation of 500 athletes, which is pretty impressive. As a former elite athlete and physical therapist, Fabienne brings a high level of energy, radiance, and authenticity to lead her clients to live their true purpose and get paid for it. So, Fabienne, thank you for joining us. It's an honor to talk as always. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, good, good.
Yes.
We were having a little bit of banter. She's in Montreal, buried in the snow right now. I'm not. There's a little bit of teasing going back and forth as a result of it. But so Fabienne, I mean, obviously you've accomplished a lot, and it's a fantastic honor to be able to go to the Pan American Games, to be there to support the athletes. But how did you develop these skills that you have now in business and in coaching? You even mentioned being an elite athlete. What's the background? Like, do you have entrepreneurial parents or athletic parents or?
Not at all, actually. I don't have entrepreneurial parents. I was raised by parents that believed in having the same job for 25, 30 years and retire and all of that. And get, your degree in university and really hope to have a great job out of it. And I would say that at first, that's what I thought that life was until I met great people in my life. For instance, my business and life partner, and he was already into personal development, working for himself, and wanting to develop something. So I guess he had good influence on me and dragged me into that. And basically, eventually, I was like, well, this is it. Like, maybe this is how I should live my life. And never looked back since then, but I've tried several businesses, and then at a certain point for the lifestyle, for also the fact that we are such in a business of changing lives with what we're doing online today, I chose that route because that fulfills me every day. So in a nutshell, that's what it is. And then the athlete side, my dad used to play a lot of soccer when he was younger, but my mom was never really a sports lady. And when I was in high school, there's this teacher that came to me. She was like, well, you seem to be good in sport. Why don't you try team handball? And I was like, what's that sport? And she's like, well, come to the tryouts. And I went and I got selected and I played for like 22 years of team handball. And
What?
along that way, I was selected on the national team and did a lot of competition internationally, played twice at the Pan Am Games, almost made it to the Olympics, and went to the World and traveled to Brazil a few times. And, like great experience meeting a lot of people from all around the world. And you know how it is. Traveling is opening someone's mind. So when you meet a ton of people and when you have to face challenges in sports or in life, well, it makes you what you are today. And I think that all these experiences made me who I am today. And that's why I feel that going there in Lima next summer is going to be very exciting, not only for me, but for the people that I will be able to mentor.
That is awesome. That does sound like a fantastic experience. What I love what you said there is how you did this one activity for over 20 years. And I'm such a fan of that. I mean, we live in an age of instant results and instant gratification. And of course, you want to see progress right away. And a lot of people get overwhelmed starting something new and they hear the rule 10,000 hours. And a lot of people don't realize it actually takes 20 hours to get past the beginner stage. So the rest of that's all intermediate. But I just came back from a trip to Tokyo, and when I was there, it was such a theme for me of real dedication and mastery to a craft and the fruits that bears after long-term effort. For example, like I went and trained jiu-jitsu where I used to train with Hickson Gracie, and there's a black belt there. He'd been training for 20 years, and he takes about 8 to 12 years to get your black belt. And when he was teaching like 101 fundamentals that you learn your first week, but he still taught it with such passion, and he had such insight into the like was it virtue is doing the common uncommonly well, and so he had such
Hmm.
insight into the refinement of the details and how to practice them, and it was just so awesome, and his belt was so worn it was almost white, and then later that day, or that trip even, I went to see Kobayashi, who's this guy that ran a ramen shop in the neighborhood I lived in. And I was like, Kobayashi, when I surprised him, we were talking like, how long have you been running this? And he said he was 76 years old and he'd been running that, or sorry, he's 78 years old and he'd been running that restaurant for 67 years. He'd been
Oh,
working there. He said his
wow.
father had ran it for 30 years before him. And it's just that, like, that theme, of like, just like maybe in another 20 years I'll figure out what I'm doing, right? Instead of like,
Mhm.
like maybe after 20 years I'll kind of have a clue what I'm up to. And I'm really appreciating that. So, what were for you some of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome in your business career?
Oh, well, that was a big one when I started out, and it was self-confidence. Especially when I wanted to jump into the online world. I spent so much time studying, buying courses, attending conferences, and not necessarily doing anything with it because I didn't know, like, I was really afraid to sell. And I was
Mm.
not really, let's say, confident enough to say, well, I could help people with something. So I kept hiding behind, okay, let me get more of this and let me buy this other book and let me start that program and never finish it and stuff like that. So it took me a while. So I guess that was one of my biggest challenges. Like at first, I was really afraid to sell. And then, well, of course, like with time and with experience, then you have to first of all like go back on yourself and realize, okay, so I have a problem here, like I need to seek out for the right help. So I met the right people that helped me go through this, and then eventually, well, I learned that being more and more comfortable in my uncomfortable zone was what I had to do in order to grow and in order to make it happen. So, of course, at first it was scary and difficult, but at a certain point, it's like it becomes scary, or we all do scary things, or I mean, things that we're afraid of because it's new, because it makes you. It challenges you to be a higher version of yourself, and when you embrace it and you go through it, well, when you're on the other side, you're like, I'm glad I did it.
Yeah,
But
you're like, why
before
didn't I do
doing
this
it,
sooner?
exactly, exactly. So I guess, yeah, that was my biggest challenge in my entrepreneurial journey.
So I love this. And this is such a common theme, and I love it. It's great. It's mindset. It affects us in business and athletics. But you said you were afraid to sell. How did you overcome that, or how do you approach it so it's no longer an issue?
How do I approach it now? Now I don't know how I approach it. Like, I mean, what I would say is that just shifting into the idea of helping someone else instead of focusing on myself only, that really helped at first. And then second thing really helped. I had a big problem of always comparing myself to others. And the thing is, I was not comparing myself with people that were at the same place as I was. I was comparing myself to people that had, I don't know, 15, 20, 25 years more experience than myself. So basically, I felt really small at that time, like wondering who would I help with the little that I know, right?
Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
then at a certain point, I don't remember who told me that or where I heard that, but someone was like, well, let's make a comparison as if you are, let's say, in sixth grade. So you could help like all the elementary school from first to fifth grade, right? But you're not going to help a high schooler because that high schooler knows maybe more than you in school than what you do in sixth grade. So it's the same thing in business. It's not because you don't have a ton of experience or because you have just started and you're like 2 years in that you can't help someone that has like no year in, or someone that doesn't have your area of expertise and stuff like that. So it's as if like just seeing things differently in that sense. I was like, wait a minute, yeah, I could help people. Like some people need my help, some people want my help, and yes, I can get paid for that. So I think that just with that shift at first, it really helped.
I love that. And I want to dive into that a little deeper and give people some examples because I think that it's a really powerful thing to think about. So I love how you say you focus on helping instead of selling, right? You're not trying to convince anyone to do something that they don't want. And I think that's where people get like, I don't want to sell. They really mean they don't want to be pushy and they don't want to push people into things that aren't good for them, right? So think of it as a stern but loving parent, right? Like, hey, you might need this.
Yeah.
And that's where you can have the conversation. If it was a friend, be like, look, man, I know you're afraid, but you got these options. And if you can empathize with people, you might feel more comfortable having that conversation. So I love
Hmm.
that approach, that helping instead of selling. And I love what you said about the analogy there about the grade school and even just how the skill that you have might be beneficial to them and not to be overwhelmed. That was actually for me, just to help give with a story, an illustrative story. I had developed a skill set in marketing for my martial arts school using online tactics that allowed me to build a six-figure business. And then I was getting into consulting and outside of work, and I got kind of intimidated. I got connected with someone that had been known to do, have multi-million dollar businesses. And I was really intimidated at first at the size of the businesses that they built, but they never done those online before. And so I found
Mm.
myself taking the skill set I built with my small six-figure school and partnering with them and applying to that. And we did over $3.6 million. And they went on to do
Mm.
$7 million with the online stuff I set up for them. But that was an example of, like you said, like with the different grade schoolers, right? Like if you're in grade 6, you might not have anything to teach the high school student. But if that high school student had never studied French and you're in grade 6 and you go to a French immersion school, then your grade 6 is, you know what I mean? Like that's like,
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that analogy because that's how I read it. That's how I took it. Like if you're in grade 6 and you're in grade 6 math, you're right. You're not going to teach a high schooler anything in math. But if you're in grade 6 of something and they're not even in that, then you could really have something to show them. And that's where you can't be intimidated and focus on helping. Like that's what how I
Exactly.
put those together. If you're focused on helping, and that's what happened to me, I'm like, what do you need help with? Oh, you're trying to do that? I know how to do that. And it was mind-boggling for me to see these things that I applied to a local business, how they still worked. It was just extra zeros attached to everything because it
Yeah.
wasn't so
But
bigger market.
I,
Sorry.
I would say also, Daryl, that there's a lot of misconceptions. Let's say when I was in that mindset, I really thought that I didn't know that much compared to people, right? As if
Mm,
like because what might be normal to you because you're passionate about it or because you have such great expertise on it, like you think that because it's normal for you or because it's easier for you, then it's the same for everyone. But that's not the case. And I think that a lot of people are mistaken because of that too, because they're like, wait a minute, like I know a bit more, but not that much more. Or people that want to start a coaching business and then they're like, well, wait a minute, I have no credentials. I haven't been to a coaching school, or I don't have that paper, or I don't have that expertise. And
mm,
what if people ask for that? And what if people like just want to know what school I went in or what paper I have or, all that stuff. And I always answered like, people are looking for a solution. And as long as you come from a genuine place where you truly, genuinely want to help them, and you can take them from point A to point B, which is solving their problem, well, most of the time they won't necessarily like go into all the nitty-gritty details of, wait a minute, like, is that a high schooler or it's someone that went to college or where's their paper and all that stuff. I don't
right.
think that's the most important thing.
Right. If you're driving and you're about to run out of gas, you pull into a gas station. You're not like, let me see your business license and let me see right? You're like, do you have gas? Great. I need some.
Yeah.
Right? That's about as far as it
Yeah.
goes. This place looks okay. And even then, sometimes people do business with places that they feel are shady. Like, I'm not going to use their bathroom, but I'll buy their gasoline and go. Like, right? Like, like that sort of thing
Yeah.
happens all the time. All the time. So I think that's another good analogy. So, what are some of the habits you feel that have helped you and even some of your more successful clients? What sort of habits or rituals do you feel have been common?
I would say consistency, and that's also that could be a challenge for a lot of people. But consistency, like there's no other words that I can use other than that to bring you to where you want to go. So when I started online and I didn't really know where I was going, well, at that time I had a call with my blogging coach, and he suggested that I start a podcast, and I was like, oh. sure, what is a podcast? And then I got the tutorial and I got started, and I didn't know what my business would look like, but I was like, well, let me do that. Let me do that well. Let me reach out to influencers. Let me publish a ton of episodes in a small amount of time. Let me build my audience like that, and let's see what happens with that. And with the podcast, I had been very consistent. So along the years, well, I was able to get some clients out of it, some speaking gigs, some people wanting to be on the show, credibility, all that stuff. So it was good for my brand, was good for the people that I met. I developed a ton of friendships out of that, but also collaborations and great opportunities. So because I was consistent with it, well, eventually stuff started happening to me because of my podcast. But statistics say, I think, that the majority of people don't go over episode like 6 or 7 with their podcasts. So
Mm-hmm.
as soon as you hit number 10, well, you're above average.
Yeah.
So,
I made it to the 10 mark.
yay! So, anyways, yeah, I would say consistency.
That's powerful. I think you're right. Discipline and consistency.
Mm.
Discipline, because I mean, you do something enough, you're going to get better at it, right? Even if you
Mhm.
suck right now, you eventually you'll figure it out. And it's tough. Again, it comes from this world of instant gratification. So I think that
Mm.
comes to tapping into a bigger why. Because if you have a deep why and a deep motivator, you're not just going to give up so easily. And I think that that's part of it. A lot of people, there's like
Yeah,
nice to haves versus must haves or want to haves.
yeah, yeah, you're right.
So now, what are some of the greatest mistakes you see your clients and other entrepreneurs making?
Not getting started because they think that they need everything or they're waiting to be ready. Like a bit like I was doing at first, like getting a ton of tutorials and buying this and that and make some research and blame it on everything else except that okay, so I was afraid to start myself, right? So a lot of people think that before starting their business, they need a website, they need their branding colors, they need to do their market research like pretty well with all those details, and they need this and that. But that's not the point. And I would say that most of the people that I work with, they are at a place where they've been waiting for so long that they're like, I've got to make this happen because this is my true purpose and I can't take it anymore that I've been waiting so long.
Mm.
So these are people that were hiding behind excuses or hiding behind like very overwhelmed again because online there's a lot of stuff and stuff some of the stuff is contradictory, can I say that?
Sure.
Anyway, so it's not the same from everyone, so they don't know where to get started and they just need someone to tell them it's possible, do that first and then do that second, and then they go on with it. But I would say the biggest mistake is thinking that you don't have what it takes to get started and wait longer again.
What are some of the things people definitely need to have before they get started?
What they need to have is like, well, first of all, is you said it a bit before, like a strong why. Because if you're in business just to get some money, I mean, you won't stay in business very long. You need to have like a deeper purpose than that for yourself first, but also for your loved ones, for the people you want to influence, what legacy you want to leave to the world. So I would say that is very important when you're starting your business, but also like um, what you need also is a sincere will to change the world, I would say, or influence people, because there's no way you're going to do business and be on your own all that time. You are going to work with people and you're going to serve people. So if you're not in a place where you want to put that as a priority and you want to do everything for yourself only, again, not a great thing to start a business. And I also think that what you need is is a great mindset, like will or grit or guts. I don't know how to call it otherwise, but like the warrior type of personality, meaning that nobody built anything very easily. Like, if you think that building a business is just like, oh, no worries, I'll work
Sunshine and
1 hour a
rainbows.
day. Exactly. I'll get money while I sleep and all that stuff. I'll work from my phone, and I would just do selfies all day and I'll be fine. That's not how you start a business, and that's not how you grow it and make it sustainable. So it needs work, it needs time, it needs sacrifice, it needs all of that. And if you're not ready for that, then starting a business is not for you. So I would say that, yeah, those are the main things that come up like to my mind after that question.
And what would you say if there's any people that are out there that are feeling like they're struggling? Like you said before, if you're just at a place where you're trying to make money, that it's not a good place to start. So what would you recommend if there are people that are struggling out there? Is there anything that you would like, what are some guiding lights that you think that they should follow?
You mean if they're struggling getting money, or if they
Just
want
to
to
get
start their business just to get money?
Well, both, but kind of both, because what I mean is like, okay, so we've talked about what you need to have to start. And so now
Hmm.
people are getting started, but there's a lot of people in different situations. Some people might have a career that they're leaving, but then they have to, like, they've got kids, they got to leave that income, right? So then there's that catch 22, or there's even people that are, all right, I'm just doing this, and they're single and whatever, but they're having the same issue. Like, I got to keep the lights on, right? Like, I remember my buddy Dan and I used to call it roof and ramen. Like, in the beginning, it was like, as long as I can pay for my roof and I can pay for some hot noodles and water, like I'm good. Like that's all I need is like mac and cheese, like roof and ramen we called it. So, if there's people that are struggling like that, I think what would you, I mean, maybe the message is the same, but I just wanted to bring that out for those types of people. What would you recommend?
Hmm. I would say that you would be surprised how many people that are in a great place. It could be online, it could be offline, as a business owner, who are ready to help. And having, if you can have someone mentoring you, if you really have like no money and you can offer your help in exchange of some wisdom or some business lessons, I think it would be a great place to start. And I also think that when when you are in a place where you can't take it anymore and you're really fed up and life seems to suck for you, and you just make you want to make things happen, and you've never hit so low in your life, then you will find a way, actually. And I can't tell you how to do it. I think everyone that has been in that situation, dig in into themselves and find that place where it's enough. I never want to be there anymore. I'll do whatever it takes. And sometimes it takes a loan, sometimes it takes to go work with someone and in exchange of something. And sometimes you are so determined that you are able to make that amount of money that can get you started into doing something that you could sell and get that money for yourself and then keep going with that.
Hmm.
So I don't
Hmm.
know if my message was clear enough, but I truly strongly feel that when people are in a place where they are so fed up, there are so many stories like that, like people hit rock bottom, and all of, like, not all of a sudden, but with a lot of work and will and dedication, well, they make it happen because they were able to find that last type of energy that was left into them, because they aspired to live a better life and they made it happen.
No, I think you're right. I think luxury is a terrible thing. Comfort, apathy, those will be your worst enemies. So, being patiently impatient, right? Being
Hmm.
dissatisfied, being happily dissatisfied. What I mean by that
Hmm.
is not where you don't have that victim mentality, but be, like again, almost like the stern but loving parent. Like you're loving of your life, but you're upset with where the way things are. And I love what you said
Hmm.
before about partnering with people, because really there's time, knowledge, and money. And typically people have one or two, but they never have all three. You might have the time to invest in something, and you might have the knowledge of what to do, but you don't have the startup capital, or maybe you have the money and the knowledge, but you don't have the time. And that's a perfect opportunity for partnerships. And that's part of what's, we're social. we're social creatures, and a lot of people, like you said, they want to just make money in their sleep. And there are ways to have that happen, but generally speaking, it's all going to be people dependent. A company is just a group of people solving the pain of another group of people via a
Mm-hmm.
product or service. It's all people based, and so the social skills and interacting with others and collaborating. So yeah, I think that you're right. Like, to get out and interact more, network more, socialize, tell people what you're trying to accomplish, tell them what you're looking to help people do, get connected, reach out, do more outreach, right? You're not going to get anywhere cackling to yourself alone in a room. You have to get on
Mm-hmm.
the phone, you have to get on a Skype call, you got to get on the phone, you got to go to a conference, you got to go somewhere and meet some people, and just be like,
Exactly.
here's what I have to offer, what do you have to offer, and just try to meet up with someone, and then just be part of, and again, it's so all the social issues come out, right? There are dishonest people, there are people that will steal your ideas, but this is a common thing I hear too. People are afraid to tell other people their ideas. I don't want to tell people what my business plan is because then they'll do it. But the reality is everyone is so involved in their own personal stories, the likelihood someone
Yeah.
will steal your idea and get running, like, if you are in a race with a competitor, then maybe you do have to be careful, because they are like a clone version of you, right? You're McDonald's and they're Burger King. You got to be careful because they're your right direct competitor. But if you're like running if you have a business of some sort and you're worried that one of your staff are going to go up and compete with you, your staff is going to go from zero to running first, and you're already at, you're already moving. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just a silly thing to be worried about. Now, what do you think of the future trends of the coaching industry? Where do you think things are going?
I really feel that with everything that's happening, like automation replacing what people are doing as jobs. Lately, there's a friend of mine who lives in San Francisco, and she posted about a coffee shop that has no employees anymore. It's just like a computer that you order and a robot that gives you your coffee. I think that people really have to be aware of, wait a minute, like there's no safety anywhere. And I truly feel that everyone, each and every single one of us, like we have something that we do better than others, and we have something we can help others with. So I just want to say that I feel that the coaching business is already like very, um, I feel that it's going to explode, and that people are going to be willing to start their own business and be of service of other people with what they know, what they've learned, their skills, their expertise, and all of that, because they will have no choice. I mean, at a certain point, you can't just rely on a job or on that fake security for you to, to be safe, or to have a brighter future for you and your family. So that's what I think. I think that more and more people will go towards that business.
I mean, that makes sense because it's easy to automate tasks, and Japan's been outsourcing that forever. I lived in Tokyo for 3 years, and when I
Mm-hmm.
was there, like a lot of places you go, they already have that where you go in, there's a vending machine that you buy a ticket for your meal, and then you go and you just hand it to the chef and you sit down, and the chef brings it out to you. Like, that's like they've
Hmm.
eliminated a lot of or they do have table staff, but I don't really see this a lot of places. But the when you sit at your table in a restaurant, there's a button that you press that calls the server over to you. So they're gone are the days of just the servers floating around checking in on you and interrupting you all the time, and like neglecting that table and bothering this table too much because there's a pretty girl there. Like, instead, they're just, you get shown to your table. When you hit the button, they come and they help you. So one person can do so much more, right? Can handle twice as
Mm.
many tables that way. So I think it's more of the thinking stuff, and I think, I mean, I asked you your opinion, so I fully agree with that. I just want to put out there for people to consider, like, you get paid in relationship to the size of the problems you solve. So if the only problem you're solving is who's going to sit in this convenience store and make sure nobody steals anything between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m., right? That's a certain level of problem. If your problem is how do I stock inventory for this place so we're not overstocked and we don't lose money by having all this unused product on shelves, that's a higher level problem. If the next problem is how do I manage 20 of these locations and make them rent right, it's a higher level problem, and your income will reflect the level of problems that you solve. So I think,
Mm-hmm.
just to add on to what you said, I think people have to elevate. You can't just, like you said, you can't just, pour crushed beans and pour hot water over them and hand them to someone. That's not going to be a way to pay your rent and potentially in the future.
No, and I think that Jim Rohn used to say it's the value that you bring to the
That's
marketplace.
right. That's right. That's
Yep.
right. How does one person make what 50 million? I think in the example when he gave that, I love Jim Rohn. He's like, how does one man make the top income in America? He said, I think was $50 million. And what do you have to do to make $50 million? I mean, there's only 24 hours in a day. Well, again, it's the value. If you help a company make $1 billion, will they give you
Mm,
50 million? Sure, it's peanuts, right? So it's the value that you bring to the hour. I love that. I
yeah.
love that. I love that. I
Yep.
love that. So now, I guess we talked about habits. We talked about mistakes see people making. What's some of the best advice that you got yourself that's helped you overcome, kind of, when you're. Well, I guess you already shared that with a 6-year-old. All right, we can skip that one. So then I guess you would say, what do people do when they get started? Like, how do you get someone up and running? Someone's got an idea, they have a why. What would you recommend they get going? They just go to a meetup and start pitching people? What do you typically recommend?
Oh, well, we spoke about that earlier, but having conversations. Because some people really think that because they're online, they have to, I don't know, they hide behind their computers and they're just like, I don't know, just typing stuff and posting content, but never interacting. But that's not how you do business. So I would say I encourage people to really interact with who would be their dream clients, or like just to see or hear or read what are their concerns, what are their challenges, and just to also identify how they should communicate with their target audience. So I would say that getting in touch either with networking or online or offline, with conversations through social media or conversations through, let's say, like this, like podcasts, expanding your reach, talking to another audience, make other people know about you and your message, then get those people into a conversation eventually. Well, that's off to a great start. That's what I would say. Like for someone that is not necessarily involved yet into hiring someone or investing in themselves for that, but just if they have an idea and they have an expertise and they want to do something with it, well, first thing first, talk about it.
Mm, well said. Fabian, this has been great. And I think for people that either are afraid of selling or have confidence issues or even are just trying to figure out how to do more with what they've got, I think this interview's got a lot of great content for them on helping them get started. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you?
Ooh, that's a tricky question. So I guess you haven't. That was perfect, Daryl.
Yeah, all good, all good, all good. All right. So now we have a couple of websites for people that are interested in reaching out to you. Do you want to share those? Do you want me to share those? Doesn't really matter. But if people are interested and they want to talk to you about this, they want to get some help, either with getting more clients on board or getting more confident and comfortable in their power, or just figuring out even who their market is and what their big why is. How should they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so there are several things, right? So I have three options. Either if they want to start out just by getting in touch with how to become a highly paid expert and build their coaching empire with something that they get for free on my website, they go on fabienneraphael.com. If they want to hear more about marketing and all these interviews I did on my podcast, Marketing to Crush Your Competitors, it's you go on the same website and then you click on podcast, which is very, very easy. And then third thing, if you're ready to get started and you're more serious and you're really tired of waiting and waiting and waiting and listening to that is burning you to start, then we could schedule a call, and it's a free call, and it's at thefabienneraphael.as.me for a strategy session.
Perfect. Awesome. Fabienne, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an honor and a pleasure. I want to hear an update for sure after the Pan American Games, and thank you for
Mm.
coming and sharing with my audience and helping us all achieve at a higher level.
Thank you. I really enjoyed our conversation.